let's start by introducing you to my lovely audience by explaining who you are and what you do.
Right, my name's Rob, and I am a shamanic practitioner. I'm a sound therapist, as you can see. I'm also a breath worker, and I work with tarot, and I run plant medicine ceremonies, and all kinds of stuff. So good luck unpacking that, Teresa.
Well, here we go. So, one of the reasons I love my world so much, and one of the reasons I have never niched, is because of the fact I love that one week we're talking Facebook ads, the next week we're talking something else, and then we're talking shamanic healing. Like, I love that we have this mix of things. Oh, I'm just going to read. I couldn't get the person to join, so there's about 2 minutes of me staring at a screen. I mean, I love that. I love that as well. The best is when someone goes live and they just don't say anything, because they're waiting for someone to come in. It's like, no, talk the second you go live. So, okay, there is a lot to unpack there. So I need to tell you though about when my husband, I've done breath work. I've not done breath work with you. I really want to do some. Whenever I say to my husband, like, I'm going to do breath work, he's like, oh my God, have you not been breathing all day? And like, he just doesn't get it, because he just thinks he thinks he's hilarious, bless him. But he's like, we all breathe all the time, but it's very different, isn't it? So like, how did you even get into doing all this stuff that you're doing?
Blimey, that's a big question. If I'm going to give you a true answer, I have to go right back to my childhood, I think.
Okay.
Because a lot of people are going to be able to relate to this story. It doesn't relate to me just because I'm LGBT. I think a lot of people have had a similar experience. And that's one where, if you imagine I grew up under Margaret Thatcher, under Church of England, constantly being told, but not in a direct way, but more in an indirect way, that you don't fit, that you don't belong here. And things like that, because there was a thing called Section 28, which meant that teachers weren't even allowed to talk about homosexuality in schools. And according to the World Health Organization, we were also outlawed. So our very existence was radical. And they say that your formative experiences really shape your entire life.
100%.
So I've spent my entire life on the fringes of existence, not really showing up for my own existence, not knowing how it feels to be in my own body, because it's so easy to escape, which is probably why I spent most of my teenage years going to lots of raves and finding myself that way, which was healthy in its own way, you know. But what breath work and all these other therapies have allowed me to do is really come back into my body and kind of put myself, all the fragmented bits of me that left and that didn't feel they were acceptable, I'm gradually sort of putting back together, and it's always a work in progress. So yeah, that's the long version, I guess.
Yeah, well, do you know what? The first thing I want to touch on is, well, can I ask how old you are, Rob?
I'm 44, I had to think then, yeah.
So you are, I'm 40, I'm going to be 44 in March.
Oh, you're Generation X as well then.
So we are very similar ages, like almost identical ages. I can't believe, or it's almost very hard to believe that that is within our time.
Yeah.
Like that happened when you were at school and you grew up in a world where, like you said, you weren't, they didn't acknowledge that you existed almost. And that obviously, you know, I am a white female. Now, I'm not a white male, you know, and someone who isn't in the LGBT community, a straight white male, I should say, like, you know, they had everything. So I guess I can understand a little bit from being a female and having being in very male jobs where it's like, oh, you know, but like to not feel like I belong or I exist, or Michelle's put it, it's embarrassing. It is like, it's unbelievable. Like, how do you even, well, I don't know. How do you even like unpack that?
Well, I don't want to paint myself as a victim so much, because it is a blessing as well, because it forced me, I spent a lot of my childhood being lost in my inner world, so I got really involved in pop culture and stuff at a really young age. I was selecting my muses in the arts world, as a lot of gay men do. And I think when we get to our teen years, we have an opportunity to reinvent life on our own terms. So I ran away to Brighton. That was me finding myself. And it's not till we actually reach late 30s, early 40s, that really it all comes catching up with us. We think we've all got it worked out in our 20s, or I did anyway.
Yeah,
And
no, we
suddenly,
haven't. We
yeah,
totally have not.
still, you know, I'm realizing that there's bits of me that remain kind of on the outcast. And actually, this Instagram Live is a very good example of that, because showing up and talking about what I do is still quite alien to me,
Yeah.
weirdly. So,
Well,
yeah.
if you've spent your entire life going, you know, either you don't exist or you go over there and you stay there and don't come out and don't talk to us and don't show up, don't show your true self, then what other, however, how are you meant to feel? Like, I can't come out and I can't have a conversation and I can't be my true self and I can't show up. And I think one thing that, and you and I have had lots of discussions about this, and we have lots of discussions in the club about it, about some of the work that I've done, some of the work that you do, some of like the, you know, like you alluded to, that, you know, sometimes you don't work these things out till later, and you spend a long time in life, and like you said, lots of people do, keeping parts very quiet, or, you know, trying to kind of close down sections of us, that actually the willingness to show up fully as we are, and all our parts, not just the, you know, Instagram worthy parts, but every single part of us is huge and takes work. This isn't something that, like, I don't think personally this is something that you just wake up one day and go, yeah, I'm ready to show the world everything. Like,
No, it's definitely not like that. Progress is never linear. We have an idea of what we'd be like when we're fixed. And, but really, I prefer to look at it as a kind of spiral motion where, you know, so we have moments of realization and actualization, and then suddenly we're right back where we started. And that's just how it is, because it's a collective wounding. We think we're on this journey on our own, and, you know, it's just about us, but really, we're all doing it. We're all unraveling and bumping into each other clumsily, and that's just how life is. So.
And you know what, and I don't know whether I said this to you actually, but I am reading, I'm in love with Gabor Maté. He is like the smartest man in the world. You were on a call, I remember saying it. And I'm reading one of his books at the moment, The Myth of Normal. And he talks about the fact of autoimmune diseases. And I definitely did mention this, I remember now. But it's so fascinating. He talks about autoimmune diseases and how some years back they were pretty much 1-to-1, as in one male, one female, and now they're like 3-to-1, and more females have autoimmune diseases than males. And when they've done the research to find out why, you know, the diets haven't been that much different, the world hasn't changed that much in that time, and one of the things they're putting it down to is things like stress, and the stress that women are under, and also the fact that women tend to be the people who are very compassionate to everybody and try and do the fixing and that sort of stuff. But then the other thing that he said was women of colour are even more susceptible to it, because not only have they got the traits that women have, but as a society, their culture, what they have to deal with is worse than what white women have to deal with. Like, and the impact that this can have physically on us and our health is just, it blows my mind. And like you said, you know, that those young things that happened really did mean that it has an effect on who you are today. And I wasn't expecting us to quite be this deep.
Gone straight there, haven't we? Well, Gabor Maté, I mean, I'm really glad you mentioned him, because he has been a big part of my journey too, because we've become very Americanized with our health system and the definitions around it, I think. Because I was diagnosed with adult ADHD, and it was a really interesting process getting that diagnosis, because it's so often pathologized, and I don't want to be too down on medications, because they, you know, they really do help people, and I want to sort of skywrite that really. But what Gabor Maté did that the health service doesn't do was reframe ADHD as a trauma-based condition.
Yes, he did.
If you take someone like me that spent half of his life not really in his body, then of course I'm going to be perpetually distracted. Then of course I'm not going to feel safe in a school assembly, and I'm just going to check out, because checking out's what I do. So it's not a predetermined brain condition so much. It's just, it's something that is a result of your story.
Yeah.
So I see ADHD as something that's part of the rich tapestry of my life. I don't even need to give it a name. I only do that for the benefit of society, really. So.
Yeah, and you're right. Like, hi Donna, by the way, and thank you. She says we're both looking good, both. Thank you. But like, that's the thing, you know, him, and one of the things he does say, and I've been listening to him with Dr. Chatterjee. I think I've said his name wrong. On his podcast, because basically I love him, Gabor Maté, so much. I was like just finding stuff, and he was on his podcast, and obviously he's a doctor and Gabor Maté is a doctor, and they both talk about the fact of when someone comes in with something like an autoimmune disease or ADHD or something that is seen as a medical thing, they don't stop and ask them if they've had any trauma, and it seems almost farcical and like, why would someone do that? But actually, when you look at the research that's done, so much of it has come from it. And also, one thing that he talks about all the time, which again, this might seem like we're going off on such a tangent, but this does have a lot to do with the stuff you do. But like, is that most people, when they think of the word trauma, they think like big T trauma. So there's big T trauma and there's little T trauma. And the big T trauma is the big stuff, like people would imagine, like the abuse, like PTSD, like, you know, the huge things. But actually, the little T trauma can be as impactful in small, like, you know, when you've had little T trauma over and over and over and over, that can be as impactful. And it's almost like, and this is not, well, I don't know if a psychologist would call this little T trauma, but it's like when I was a child being told constantly, I talk too much and I'm lazy. And it's like, they then start to shape who you are. Oh, thank Claire said this is fascinating stuff. I'm so glad.
I would also use the word microaggression as well, because if school teachers aren't allowed to reference you and they talk around you but not to you, then that's a microaggression.
Yeah.
And it's they kind of leave little scars in your energy field, if you like.
100%. But also, like you said, and this is the other thing that sometimes we can't see, and again, I'm always so very cautious when I say stuff like this, because, you know, there are some people who've been through some big, awful stuff, but like, everything that happens to us shapes us, and there is some element of, no, I'm not even going to say it, because it, like I said, you know, I've got to be really careful now how I say this, but you've said yourself that there is some benefit to that's shaped you who you are. Now, benefit's the wrong word, but that has shaped who you are. And actually, I look at you and think, wow, you went through that, and yet you came out of your childhood years and went, yeah, no, this is me. And the fact that you're showing up, and the fact that, and we've had conversations about this from a business point of view, of you showing up as you are and going, this is me, this is what I do, and like, and how terrifying that is for anybody, but also for someone who's been through the journey you've been through, makes me think, oh my God, you're a freaking rock star. Because,
thank you.
But honestly, like, doing this, for people watching, doing this is, I'm not going to use the word scary, but it's stepping out of a comfort zone, even for me, when this is my bread and butter. I love this stuff. But there is an element of, you know, it's easier not to put yourself online and talk, you know, about yourself or show who you are. And when you've been brought up in no, you're not allowed to show who you are, and no, you don't exist in a weird way, but to then do that, you should be so proud of yourself.
Oh, thank you. Well, I think it's a lot easier for certainly gay men these days. But I think if we look at what's happening with the trans community now, it's exactly the same as when I was at school almost. It's the same tired old tropes being thrown at them by the Daily Mail and people like that. So it's very sad to see, which is why, you know, I'm really pleased that the T is in the LGBT acronym, because I feel like the stories of wounding are very similar. And when I look at what's happening with the trans community, I think, oh God, we're here again. You know, you said earlier, I can't believe that happened, but it's happening.
Yeah,
right
and like you said, that kind of cultural, you know, and basically, if you're not white, and I mean, like I said, white straight male are like, you know, there you go, you're fine. There's like no concern for you. But like, and as a woman, there's elements that I see and we've been through. But as a woman of colour, as a man of colour, as a woman in the LGBT community, or, you know, a trans person, or, you know, oh my God, you're just like chucking it on and chucking it on and chucking it on. Like that in itself is just like, how do you even, like you said, how do you even get past all that? How do you even like basically have the confidence and the courage to show up and be who you are? Because society is basically saying, no, no, we don't want you. We don't want people like you. We don't want.
I think the 90s was a very interesting time. So for me, it was counterculture. It was the rave culture really gave me an outlet to express myself that that normal society didn't. So we talk about, ADHD minds are very strange because on the one hand, we can hyper focus. We can go right down there and we're really deep thinkers and we can stay there. And it really serves us. But on the other hand, we're perpetually distracted. And for me, going to a big rave with thousands and thousands of people is where I find my zen. I can feel really calm on the dance floor. There's something about the noise that gives me the opportunity to drop down. I can't really explain it. It's like I can be doing an assignment and I'll put some really noisy Miles Davis style jazz on and that'll allow me to really focus and get the work done. So
That's so funny.
Work. So
and that's the thing, and it's just a case of like, we're not broken. None of us are broken. Like, we all have different and unique ways of doing things, and it's just the way we choose to do it. It doesn't mean because it's different to someone else that we're right, they're wrong, or vice versa. It just means that it's different. And also embracing that, and like you said, knowing actually this is when I work better, this is when I am happy to show up better, this is when I'm the most confident. It's going, do you know what? I'm going to do what I need to do do those things. So anyway, let's get on, because I said we digress completely. But honestly, I could talk about Gabor Maté all day long. I freaking love the guy. But let's talk about some of the things that you do. And so let's talk about, Andy says he can relate to that, Rob. Let's talk about like the sound therapy and how that works, because I had to do a lot of research into, when I first discovered it, I was like, what does it do? Like, because I like an explanation to things, although I do also like to trust in the process of things. I do like to know. So explain to us kind of where that comes from.
Well, different instruments do different things. I first came across the gong at a festival in, I think, around 2009, so I was quite an early adopter, and I found that the gong really took me very deep very quickly, because it's just the layers upon layers of complex frequencies. Your brain just in the end goes, sod this, and gives up. And it just naturally goes into that theta brainwave state. So if you're one of these people that can't meditate, the gong is a really good fast track way to
That's good.
get yourself there. And I always think it's not so much about the sound, it's more about framing the silence. So it really doesn't matter which modality you practice even, it's more about what you do with that space. So I'll hold the container, you do the work type thing. So if you go in with the right intention and you're willing to put the work in the integration phase, you can really work miracles with this stuff. But it does require showing up and doing the work.
Becky said that's 100% her, and Louise says hi Louise. And I think actually that is the one conversation that I have all the time with people when I talk about meditating, because as you know, and as I say very openly, I meditate and I love meditating. And sometimes I can drop down really quickly and I can be like so in it, and other times I can be like, this is not working, I'm out of here. But like, to actually go, well, if it isn't working and if you do need something, and I like guided meditation because I like someone to walk me through, and now after doing it for a very long time, I can do some meditations where they're not guided and I can just sit and go, okay, let's focus on my breathing or whatever. But actually to do that, that's really good. Becky says a sound bath is on a list of things to do. She really wants to try this year. And I have done like a sound bath, not with gong. Well, they did have a gong, but they had the bowls. But you're right. And what I love that you threw in is it's to do with your brain waves. And this is where I like to throw it back to the science side, because some people might look at it and go, well, it's just like, I don't understand it. But like, your brain has different brain waves, doesn't it? And it helps it fall. Can you explain that a bit better than I can?
Well, the theta brainwave state is the very relaxed state. It's the state we need to get to if we want to do deep work, really. And yeah, I mean, what do you want to know about the theta brainwave? I don't know
Well,
what else.
obviously, we don't operate in theta normally. We
No.
operate in a higher brain state,
Mm.
and that's the kind of concentration. And if I knew, I have got it somewhere in the many work I've done about all the different what the different names are. But in order to really kind of, and it also helps your creative brain, the more you can drop down into those states. So when you say do the work, what kind of things are you talking about? Like, what could it help with?
Well, we need to really learn to stop if we're going to meet the deepest part of ourselves. And it takes a long time to get there, you know, particularly if we're in the city. Lots of noise out there, and we're in this digitally obsessed culture where just stuff's being thrown at us all the time. And we rarely stop, we rarely integrate, because on our downtime we're scrolling, or we're watching telly, or we're doing anything but being still. So all of these modalities, the breath, the gongs, all these things, they're kind of to teach you to stop time and find out where you are right now, not where you were yesterday, not where you want to be, but where you are now, and that's where the juice is. Because with breath work, I mean, we talk about meditation as something. Traditionally, it's about going with a breath count and calming the mind. Now, breathwork doesn't have to be about that. Sometimes someone can go deep into a panic state in a breathwork session, for instance, and they can spend 20 minutes breathing like a freight train. And because it's under supervision and they're being told, they're being held and being told that you're safe, you're safe, you're safe, it can be and lots of emotion can come up, and it's just about going where the breath wants you to go. So if that's into panic or into anger or into confusion or boredom, all these states are welcome and interesting, and they'll all take you somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. And I think that what you said then is we are in a world that is designed to distract us all the time. It's designed to take us out of our body and out of ourselves. Do you know, it's so funny. I went out today because sometimes you just get sick of the same four walls and the dogs. And I went to the local restaurant where we go all the time, my husband and I go, and I set up my laptop, and they're very kind, and I just worked there for hours. Obviously, I ordered food and a drink, but so I set my laptop and I was doing this work, and this guy came in, and he obviously was a regular, like a weekday regular, and he sat down and he ordered his food, and he sat there for almost as long as I did, and I was probably in there about 3.5 hours. No phone, right? No book, no piece of paper, and just sat there, just like staring. And I was just like, not like staring in a weird way, but just sat, not even as if he was paying attention to people, just sat. And I remember I was like sat there thinking, like, bring a book. Like, what are you doing? But you're right. Like, we are constantly distracting ourselves. We are constantly, our world is set up to be constantly doing something. So actually to come back to us. And one thing that I've noticed, and I've done huge amounts of work around this, is actually feeling my body. And, this is a whole nother kind of, brand new podcast that I'd need to do, but like actually feeling my body and going, how does this feel to me? Or how do I feel at the moment? Because actually sometimes I noticed I'd be in a constant state of anxiety, but I wouldn't notice I was in a constant state of anxiety because very cleverly my brain was going, well, let's distract you, play with your phone, watch the thing, do the stuff, like drink a drink, eat some food, because just to kind of take me out of that feeling. But actually, instead of distracting ourselves, what you're saying, and correct me if you're wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, not you're wrong, is we need to bring ourselves into ourselves and go, well, why might that be? Like, one, give yourself the chance to go, okay, right, I'm here, no one needs anything from me, there's no distractions, I can just focus on me. But if I am in this constant state of anxiety, or if you're feeling sad, or you're feeling whatever it might be, is to just get curious within that safe space. Is that, does that make sense?
Exactly it, yeah. Because I think words are very useful, but they can also keep us in a place. We get very used to talking about ourselves, like My name's Rob. I grew up in the West Country. I like this music. I like it. We have very fixed ideas about ourselves, and that also applies to our mental health. So if we keep telling ourselves that same story and over again, it becomes fixed. It becomes real. So the breath allows us to kind of sink beneath the story, and it's through not only the breath but also body awareness where we discover sort of stresses and tensions in the body, and each one of those tensions contains a story. If we breathe into it, then we might experience memories or sensations, or it might move somewhere else. You know, it's just about getting to know yourself on a kind of sort of embodied state, if you like. You know, getting out of here and into here. You know,
yeah, and that is not an easy thing to do. Like, and I do, like I said, a lot of work with a lot of different people and lots of different modes, and it is very difficult for me to do that for me. I need that kind of, I either need the meditation to help me or the breathwork to help me, or, you know, my therapist to help me, whatever it might be. I almost need those other things to come in. And that's the kind of space you're providing. But you're just saying, well, we can do it this way, or we can do it this way, or we can do it this way.
Well, the breath is in charge, and also I think this is where the magic of the practitioner-client relationship comes in, because I don't know where a session's going to go. They don't know either, and it's through building trust of when and where to provide both physical and verbal interventions that you reach that sweet spot where they can direct the session and they're in charge because they're following the breath. And once they get there, I can take my hands off, and they're in that space, and that's where the magic happens.
But this isn't just like with all of this stuff, and no one wants to hear this, but we all have to hear this. This isn't like a 5-minute thing. Like, we wish to God, like, and Rob and I have had conversations, so I know that Rob and I have both done a lot of work, and like I'm constantly saying and talking about doing the work, and this isn't like have one therapy session, you're fixed, do one meditation, you're zen for life. Like, and it's exactly the same with this stuff takes time, this stuff takes kind of commitment in a way, doesn't it? So like, perhaps when people, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's almost an element where people see the work you do almost like going to a yoga class, or going to like, well, I went to one yoga class, I'm great now. It's not the same, is it? It is very much like...
No, definitely not. But it can be used in that way. I mean, I wouldn't want to put people off using a gong experience like a bit of a spa day. But if you're suffering from stress and anxiety, it's often not the thing that we think we're stressed about. You know, we think we're stressed by a critical boss, for example. But if you come to a breathwork session, take those feelings of stress into the body, we'll suddenly explore, well, when's the last time you felt like that? Oh, work, yesterday. Well, when's the first time? Oh, when I was younger. So the trigger points, the actual root cause of the issue is often not with the critical boss in the everyday. It's stored in our body, and it was put there in childhood. So breathwork can really take you to that root cause and deal with trauma there where it needs to be done, as opposed to in the everyday where we think we need to work it out, you know? So.
Yeah. And I think as well, there'll be some people watching this thinking, I don't want to go there. Like, I don't want to, do I have to? Do I have to talk about this stuff? Like, can I not just leave it be?
The good news is that no, you don't have to. You absolutely don't have to. No. You go to where you feel safe, and the breath isn't going to take you anywhere where you will feel unsafe.
I think as well, and again, you're much more better placed than me to talk about this, but like, it's not going to suddenly show you something that you don't want to see, or that you didn't know was gonna. It's not like, you know, you're being held the entire time through it with, you know, your job in this, Rob, is to provide this space, but their job is to drive what they need to drive. At the end of the day, it's your head, you're in your own thoughts. So, you know, I don't think anything big, horrible, scary is going to come up that they're maybe not expecting.
Well, some people, lots of different people react in different ways. Some people get bodily sensations. Other people will get stuck in thought loops. Some people get get memories. Some people visions. So some people will, you know, go into here and start conscious dreaming, which is where this little baby comes in. So
what's that?
The drum, it's really good for visualization. So the gong is really good for relaxation. This is really good for keeping you in a vision state. So let's say that you're visiting an old situation from childhood and you're visioning your child and you can see it very clearly, then this will kind of keep you in that. So if you've got a theme going on, the drum is very good for, I don't know, keeping you in the vision.
I like it. I like it. So a couple of things. So Sue said, is it like when we saw with Gabby Logan when she worked with Wim Hof? Well, Wim Hof is breath work, isn't it? That's
yes,
what
it is, yeah.
A lot of what he does is breath work.
Yeah, Wim Hof is amazing. Yeah, I find Wim Hof is really good for do-it-yourself stuff at home. You know, anybody can do Wim Hof and get really good results from it. Rebirthing that I practice is excellent with a practitioner, because what you're doing, you know, Wim Hof is very prescribed. Rebirthing is all about following the breath where it needs to go to death. So
yeah,
that's where it becomes interesting. So
yeah. And then Louise said, which I'm interested for you to answer this. Louise said, I'm too scared to dig deep. What do you say, and what would you say to someone saying that to you?
Well, nobody is going to be asked to go anywhere that they don't feel comfortable with. I think the assumption is that if you go into a shamanic session, then suddenly you're going to be hitting trauma straight away, and suddenly going into those difficult places, and you know, going into the dark to reach the light. It isn't always like that. Sometimes it can be ecstatic. Sometimes you can have a really, really calm session that's all about love, and it can feel amazing. So I think let go of the expectation of what going into trauma can feel like, because sometimes it can be joy.
Yeah. And it was funny, I mentioned to you that I've done, if you think my dog is crying in his bed.
What's the dog name again? Remind me, don't want to go too far.
So Teddy is the one who's crying. Woody is probably sat there like rolling his eyes. But I did some breath work recently. I did a kind of little course thing in it, and it was funny because some of the Louis says thank you. Some of the breath work that I did initially was like very upsetting, and I was literally like, it was pouring and pouring and pouring, and I'm like trying to do the breath work. Then the next week I do it, and it's angry, and it's like, and we, in this breathwork that I did specifically, it was you had to scream part of it. Now I've done breathwork before over in Nashville with Mary, and that didn't include screaming, so it's not that every breathwork is the same, not at all. And this one was screaming. So then, like the first time I did it when I was so upset, it was almost like a howl, like a, you know, a really deep hurt scream. The second time it was like a, I'm gonna rip someone's head off scream. And then another time I did it, it was pure like, I'm the boss, like I feel amazing, this is amazing, like, and almost like I could almost feel like this big massive grin on my face. But the program that I did, they took us through a journey, and that kind of made sense to me as to why I felt different things at that point. But like you said, it doesn't have to be like, when we do this work on ourselves, like I think for me, you've got to go in with compassion. Like I think having that compassion for yourself, and also thanking yourself for doing the work, thanking yourself for going, do you know what, you're showing up and you're doing things that maybe don't feel very comfortable, because it's so much easier to go, yeah, I feel angry. But, and again, you know, and obviously I can only speak for myself, but as women, we're taught to not show aggression, not show anger. If a woman gets angry,
annoying, isn't it?
Like, you're out of control, you're wild, what is wrong with you? Like, we are taught as children and as girls that no, you sit pretty, you look this way, you don't misbehave, you don't raise your voice, you don't do this. And actually, like, one conversation that I have with my husband a lot is, feelings are okay. Like, if I'm upset, I'm allowed to be upset. If I'm angry, I'm allowed to be angry. It's not that we shouldn't feel certain things. It's that we shouldn't, like, we should be able to feel the full range of emotions, but some emotions feel much nicer than others.
Yeah, and it's a bit like a peeling of an onion, really, because you mentioned sometimes you're feeling angry, then you're feeling happy, then you're feeling this, then you're feeling that. Well, that's kind of the nature of a breathwork journey.
Mm.
Over 10 sessions, you can feel every single emotion. And it was very interesting, actually. Yesterday, I worked with a client, and at the end of it, she came around, she was like, I feel like I've just had a decade of therapy in one session. So it can really be like that. It can be very intense. So the integration period afterwards becomes very important then. Looking after yourself, doing the self-care, staying in the experience. And be careful who you share it with as well, because I think sometimes when delicate issues come to the surface, they need to be kept in that container. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to share it, then be careful with the people that you do, because that they can take your energy or shove you right back where you were before you started. So it's all sacred, and it has to be held very gently. So.
Yeah, and that's, I really want to touch on that. I just want to read what Sue said. She said, the easiest way to dismiss a woman is to wrap her words in scorn, honestly. And it really bothers me that, like I said, if you get angry or if you get upset, it's like, well, one, as a society, we're told to close it down and to not feel those things. And two, especially with a woman, it's because we're mad and we're losing it and all that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So what you just said, which I thought was brilliant, was the fact of like, it is very sacred. And sometimes, and again, I'm only talking about my own experience, and you and I have done work together. You did a tarot reading for me, which I'd never had before, which I really love. But like, sometimes things come up and I had to discuss very personal stuff with you. Where it made sense. So like, you would show me something and go, does that ring a bell? And I'd be like, well, actually, yeah, there's this thing or that thing. And again, within a kind of breathwork ceremony, or within the, the kind of healing space, sometimes you will have to, or it is better if you can share those things. So it's almost like the same. Like if you have a therapist, you wouldn't have a therapist that you don't gel with, because you just wouldn't be able to open up with them and have those conversations. So it's the same with this. It's the same with, you need to feel safe in that space to be able to share whatever it is that you need to share to help get it out or clear it or whatever it is. So, and I think there is something like, you've got to feel that vibe. And when we talk about energy, I think sometimes people find that really difficult to kind of get their head around. But actually, when you meet someone and you're like, oh, no, I don't like you, and you have no good reason why, that's the energy. So like, if you were to go into a space, and it's funny, I was looking for sound baths where I live. And so when I went to Nashville, it was the first time I had one. And the woman was ace, and I loved her, and it was brilliant. And then I had a go. I think I told you this, and she was like to get it that quick is crazy, and it really, like, I could feel it in my whole body. It was amazing. Anyway, so I thought, I want to do more of this. So when I got back, I searched for sound baths and gong baths and all this sort of stuff. And the guy who came up instantly went, oh no. Like, and it was literally over a Facebook post. And
I was going to ask you to name him, but I won't.
No. And I probably couldn't remember, but there was just something immediately that I was like, I do not want to go and do your same bath. I could just tell straight off the bat. So it's that same thing. You need that kind of, you need to feel that energy and relationship.
Yeah, and you raise an important point there, because I think part of my journey as practitioner, because I trained for a long time, and like years and years, and you go on these retreats and everybody would turn up on them from all walks of life. And you come away from that all qualified, and you think, well, that's how life's going to be. This is how my practitioner space is going to be. So you sort of come away with this view that you got to walk up and down Oxford Street with this sandwich board on, going, get your rebirthing, but it's really not like that, because the next stage in your practitioner journey is working out who you are as practitioner.
Yes.
And the beauty in that is that you don't have to serve everybody. There isn't a one size fits all, which is why I tend to lead with the, I work with misfits. I work with people that don't feel that they fit very well in the urban jungle. So anybody that was told they weren't good enough, or, they're part of a minority group, or they in some way feel like they don't fit mainstream society, then you're a client of mine. Because I understand the energetic signature, I understand the journey. So
yeah,
that's the place I feel comfortable in.
I love that. And it was funny, the woman who did the sound bath in Nashville, I came out of that session like, she was amazing. I loved her. I loved the energy. pretty much everyone else was like, I did not like her one little bit. And it was so weird because I was like, what's your problem? I thought she was ace. But yeah, it was really, really interesting. And like you said, it's you also as well, bring what what you, no, I can't even think what am I trying to say? Like you attract those people to you that are the right sort of people.
Yes, I think you do. I think there's something in that. Yeah.
So why would someone, like, if someone's watching this now and they're thinking, yeah, I like the idea, but I'm not really sure it's right for me, or why would I do it? Or like, if someone is curious, what would you say to them about maybe going through or starting something like this?
Well, I would say, I think somebody would look at my homepage and they'd probably be, at first glance, a bit swamped by modalities, to be honest. And what I would say in that situation is that really it doesn't matter what you practice. It's what you're bringing that's important. All you need to do is show up and the work is done.
Mm-hmm.
The breath is the foundation. The gongs are going to help you relax. If you want to work with cacao, that's a good way to tune into plant medicines and get guidance that way. But really, it's irrelevant which one you pick because your story is the important thing, and it's you that does the work. I provide the container. So, and it is about committing. It's about showing up. And I usually say about 5 to 10 sessions to actually get to a point where you come away with a skill. You're able to do something on your own, and you reach that point where you get that dramatic arc where you think, okay, I understand where I'm going with this. So, yeah.
And I can testament to the fact of some of this stuff, some of the practices, some of the, and not necessarily, it might just be the meditating or the journaling or whatever, has taken almost years to get to a point where I go, that's it. Like, or to see the difference. Like, there are some changes that have happened to me this year that have been in my world for 4 years, and it has taken all that time to finally, for it to go, and now I'm ready to make the move, or now I'm ready to make the change. And it does take time. It's a bit like anything. Like if you go to one therapy session, they're not going to fix you. If you go to one gong bath, you're not suddenly going to wake up tomorrow and be like, whoa, I'm amazing. So it is about that. Also, I want to touch on, because I know everybody else will be like, what? The cacao thing? Explain that.
Okay, I will.
What is that?
Okay, well, there's lots of plants out there that are considered teacher plants.
Okay.
Some are more well known than others. If we take things like ayahuasca, cannabis, which is quite well known, hedgerow, which is quite well known. A lot of these are psychedelic and psychotropic plants where you would go to other cultures. Let's have it right. We do a lot of cultural appropriation as white people, don't we? So you can go to the rainforest and you can drink these potions, and you will purge, and you'll experience visions, and they'll teach you things, and it can be an incredible experience, but it can also be quite traumatic, both physically, mentally, and emotionally. So you have to know what you're getting into when you do it. And also in the West, we're pretty obsessed with leaving our bodies. We're quite a drug culture with our alcohol and recreational substances.
Yeah.
So we hold this belief that the more we kind of blast ourselves out of the system, the more visions we receive, the more psychedelic it gets, the more we're going to get to take home, and the more we're going to change. But that's not true. Which is where I think cacao comes in, because cacao, it grows all across the equator, and it's a very gentle medicine. It's actually chocolate in its purest form. And I think it was brought here by Columbus, so another colonial story, unfortunately. And it was held as an aphrodisiac, I think, for the elite at the time. And that's how it avoided all the legal scapegoating. That's why chocolate is not illegal, because it's actually, people don't know that cacao is psychoactive.
Right.
So it's not you're not gonna trip your nuts off or anything like that. There's nothing frightening about it. You can operate heavy machinery, or you can drive afterwards.
Okay.
It is nothing frightening about it whatsoever. So for the city, it's a brilliant gateway into plant medicines, because what it will do is, I would describe it is like having a hug from the inside.
Okay.
What it will do is give you a nice warming feeling in the heart area, and allow you to sort of sink down into body awareness and listen to what's really going on inside. And different people experience cacao in different ways. Some people will receive intense dialogue from the medicine. Other people will just come around complaining that nothing happened. Then suddenly, when they share in the circle afterwards, it's like, well, actually, this did happen.
Yeah.
It can be really subtle. It can be, but it can also be amazingly deep. And also, it's worth mentioning that people that say they can't meditate, they can come to a cacao ceremony and quite happily submit to a 4-hour ceremony. So it's really good for keeping you in a process. Cacao, you can go for a very long time, and it's a beautiful experience, especially to do in groups. So I love cacao ceremonies. I run them in North London around once a month.
Do you know what? If someone just dropped into our conversation just then and you were talking about it can keep you going for a long time, I loved it, it's really good in groups, it's like, what are we talking about right now? So, like, I'm going to ask the stupid question. Yeah. Do you eat it? Is it like, it's an eaty thing?
No, I wish I could show you some. I haven't got any with me, actually. It's cold pressed, and it comes from direct from the Amazon, the stuff I use. And you make it into a drink, sort of a lukewarm drink, and it's very syrupy, and it's quite bitter in its taste because it hasn't got the sweetener in it.
Yeah.
It's not the same as the cacao you get in health food shops.
Okay.
Because this cacao has got all the natural oils contained in it. So it's a living plant medicine when you consume her. We call her her. It might seem strange to gender a plant medicine, but it's an entity.
I gender all my plants, FYI. Okay. Like, I'm not even kidding. I'm like, oh, she's doing lovely. He is unbelievable. Like, honestly, they all have genders, yeah.
Good.
So I'm all over that.
It's a drink, and you consume it.
Okay.
So like a sacrament, if you
okay,
like.
Well, that is on my list of things to do. I have actually, someone I know asked me if I wanted to go to like an ayahuasca ceremony thing, retreat. And they're going to send me the details when they do it, but they're a YouTuber and they would film it for YouTube, and I'm not entirely sure if I ever was to do that I want that on YouTube for the world to see. But I find all that sort of stuff really fascinating. And Sue Perkins, she did a Netflix series, I think it was, and she took it and well, it was very amusing to watch. I don't think that was the purpose of it, but it was out of it, like proper out of it.
Yeah, it is an amazing experience, but it's very out there, and I think it can take a long time to make sense of it. I think the problem with Westerners, I keep coming back to this actually, is that we again and again want that experience where we see colours and stuff, and it's not really about that. It's to do with how we integrate it when we get home. So you can drink ayahuasca once in the rainforest, or do a series of ceremonies and then leave it there. Come home and it will take about 5 years to understand it sometimes. So
that's crazy.
Whereas cacao is more close to, I would say.
Okay.
The results that you would get from that tend to be subtler, more coherent, and less abstract.
I love it.
There's no rule of thumb, but that's how I describe it.
That's so cool. So cool. So Rob, before I go, I can't have you on and not have you like hit your gong. Is that too personal? Can we get you to do that?
Of course I can, yeah. This is a Uranus planet gong, and this one behind me, up here, that's my main workhorse. So that is a symphonic gong that they use in orchestras, and it's the best gong that you can get in the modern world, because a lot of the ancient knowledge has been lost. So,
right, this is cool.
I don't know how this is going to translate actually on.
Oh, we'll go with it. We'll try.
I hope it doesn't distort, but we'll give it a go.
Give it a go. it almost like is getting louder and bigger without you hitting it.
It does, yes. The gong sound, it blossoms and it fades. And if you were lucky enough to play a gong that belongs in V&A, for example, it would blossom and blossom and blossom, and it would seemingly never finish because there's this ancient knowledge with gongs that we've lost. And these pasty ones are the best ones you can get these days, and they kind of mimic what's said to be the sound of the original Om, which is said to be the sound of creation. If you want to get about it, but yeah.
And there is something about, and obviously I've just got you to do it online and we're on a live, but being in a room and it's feeling that as well is just, there is something so.
Yes, like, it's a physical thing. It's absolutely a physical thing.
Yeah.
You feel the vibration. Because if you imagine we're sort of 70% water, and we're vibrating, our cells are vibrating. So if you think what happens to sediment in water when we apply vibration, well, the same thing's happening in your body.
I love it.
So, yeah, quite incredible. But before, how did that sound come across on Instagram? I'm really interested.
It came across fine for me. Obviously, I don't know whether I'm hearing it different because I'm on the live with you. But Caroline said, loved it, so insightful, and now I want to check out more. And Louise said, that's so cool. So I think it did. Oh, you could definitely feel and I am very tactile. I feel a lot. So I kind of feel it. But like when you hit it, I can feel like the kind of getting powerful and powerful. You can definitely kind of feel that resonation. I've just made that word up. That's not even
good one.
It now is a thing. Sounded great. They're saying it sounded great, and it did sound great. And but I think, like I said, to experience it is one thing. To be in a room and like feel that, like, and it's just with my thing, like I just have a really open mind and go, as long as nothing's harming anything, why not try it? Like, so why not go along and have I'd love to play it to our full PA system. Yeah, I think that's the thing as well. Like the gong, not the gong, the sound bath I did, she did say it was recorded, and she did say you can do it at home and like put your phone next to your head or whatever. But of course, it's never going to do it like it's in person. But there is that sound waves. In fact, while Annie's on, I have to say, Annie sent me some new. I've got some new bracelets from Annie, and I had to cleanse them with sound, and I put this thing on, and my daughter walks in and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm cleansing these crystals. Do you think that really works, Mum?" And I was like, "Yes, babe. Like the sound waves." And like, anyway, it just really made me laugh because she was like, as if to say, "Is someone pulling your leg here? Like, is someone winding you up?" No, B, it did work. Like, that is the thing. But yeah, Rob, honestly, it's so good to have you on. And
I've got to plug my PDF as well, actually.
Oh, yes, please do. Gosh, I nearly forgot then. So, Rob, plug your PDF.
I've got a freebie, actually. If you go onto my Instagram, up in the link in bio thing, you'll find a little PDF I put together. It's just 5 tips to help you survive life in the urban jungle. And I've done it because really that's the platform that we need to be standing on if we're going to do any deep work. It contains all the obvious stuff like building a good relationship with tech, breathing properly.
Which so many people don't do, FYI. Like,
no.
So, and until you start doing this, that you're like, oh God, yeah. Like, seriously, people don't do it right.
Well, it's because we're all slumped over our desks. And when we're at work, we tend to breathe quite, if you catch yourself breathing when you're at work, it'll be very shallow. And then when we're shallow breathing, suddenly we'll gasp for air, as if we're drowning. And it has the same effect on the body. So that habit of over-breathing kind of triggers a stress response in the brain. So breathing properly is really important. So that's in there as well. Getting out and about in nature, how to use your intuition or start doing that, and also journaling to try and get that kind of half-full approach to daily life.
Super powerful stuff.
To get on that first platform if you're thinking of sort of beginning a journey of self-development. Yeah. My hope is that all of my clients will have kind of got all that in check when we're doing this work. So it's the bio, go and download it.
Yes, so go and follow Rob, and then go to his link and download his lovely download his lovely download. That doesn't make sense. I love that Sally said, well, that's opened my mind. Wow, I love that, Sally. Annie said you're returning them. Wendy said she had a crystal healing session yesterday and it was wonderful. I've been doing some of your practices from your guide, Rob, said Annie, and it's great. Helped with my upper back pain. Honestly, fascinating chat. Thank you so much. So, like, honestly, this stuff is, I just keep a really open mind to it, and because I like the science behind this stuff, the stuff that can do is phenomenal. Like, and I have to say personally, me of 3-4 years ago and me of today are completely different, and I am so very grateful for it, like so grateful for all the work and all the things and having these things introduced to me. So go and get Rob's download, because all those things that he said are really, really key, and really, you know, you haven't got to pay out hundreds of pounds to do anything he says in there. Like, it's really practical but really meaningful stuff. And Rob, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. And yeah, go check him out. Thank you, Rob. Right, we'll see you later, everybody. Bye, 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 bye.